Hey guys, IROCTHS back here with the fourth video in the How to Build a Perfect Team Model series, joined again by Colette, as we get ready to build out or not build out, but do the regressions that allow us to build out the models here. So today we're going to look through doing the model or doing the regression for all all of the ratings that we have and all the outcomes that we have. And then in the next few episodes, we will actually build the models. So we're actually predicting the outcomes based on player ratings in the next couple of episodes. So we are going to come back in here to Excel. This is the sheet that I have been working in pretty much the entire time, or the workbook I've been working in pretty much the entire time. And the first thing that I want to do is I am going to make a copy of all of the, I'm going to make a copy of all of the sheets that we're going to use. So the batch sheet, the pitches sheet, and the field sheet. And the reason I want to do that is because you don't want to take the risk that you mess up something with data and not have a backup. So you always want to make sure you have two copies of anything anytime you want to start messing with it, whenever you can. I'm going to start off with the batters here, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight UBB all the way over to bats, and then right click, hide, and I'm also going to hide bats. That is because we don't need to have them showing, and that can make things a little complicated. Going back and forth between everything, you can see we're already technically off the screen here. We have to scroll a little bit to see base running. So next thing we're going to do, we are going to filter by plate appearances. We're going to go over to number filters and greater than or equal to, let's check 1000 here. And that gives us 46 players. That's a pretty good number. 46 is plenty to do the modeling on here. So we need to model pretty much everything here. The walk rate, strikeout rate, home run rate, BABIP, extra base. Oh, we can hide extra base hits actually. We hide that, and we have everything on one sheet. Cool. So we need to model all of these numbers here for batting. And then we also need to model these stolen base attempts, stolen base rate, and I need to unhide something. You can just double click on the double lines here, and it'll unhide all of them. Because I accidentally hid UBR, and we need that. So we're going to hide everything from caught stealing over to at bats. Really quickly go over why we are modeling, or why we're training the model based on the combined rating for all of these, so you can see that we're training on the avoid Ks, the power, the I. We're not training on the V right and V left. The issue is we don't have any split data for tournaments. Tournaments do not save splits data, so we can't actually train it based on V right or V left. That's why we have to take some workarounds and find the percentage of batters faced and the percentage of plate appearances that come from various handedness. We can't actually calculate splits, so we have to simulate splits. That is one of the limitations we still have with our ability to model tournament data. That is not the case in league play. League play has splits, so you can have all that information if you're modeling league play. It doesn't really matter what order we run the models in, but we are going to start with I and walk rate, because that is the first thing we really model. We build in the model. So I'm going to copy the I here. I'm going to make a new sheet. I'm going to copy the I. I'm going to put it in A. And I go back to bats, copy the UBB rate, and put it in B. And then highlight both. Insert, scatter plot, And here you can see that there is a couple of appears breakpoints in the data here. So you can see definitely toward the top, it starts to curl up a little bit. And also toward the middle here, it starts to increase a little bit around maybe 50 or 60. So if we add a trend line really fast, add the trend line. Go over to this, the graph options here, or trend line options here, not the formatting options. Show the equation and the r squared. And I'd like to drag this up to the upper right corner. So you can see it mostly fits pretty well. And the r squared is essentially how much of the difference between the dependent variables, so along the y-axis, is determined by the x-axis here. As the I increases, how much does the walk rate increase? We have a few different trendline options here that will give us the equation of best fit. So we've got an exponential one that is a little worse. It definitely underperforms at the bottom end, where it's less accurate down there. If it's a little closer here at the top end. You've also got the logarithmic option, which is much worse because it's trying to pull the top end down quite a bit and pull the bottom end in, trying to kind of move everything toward the middle. You got the polynomial here, which is one I tend to like because it tends to really excel kind of when there's a hard change at the top end. Either it starts swinging wildly and getting exponentially better, or starts having significant diminishing returns. It is slightly better in this situation. I am going to go ahead and use it, but the next thing I want to do, change the category here, click on the equation here, and go over to the label options and change it to number and decimal places. We are going to go to 8. And the reason we do that, we'll move UBB right out of the way here. The reason we do that is because whenever possible, I don't like having to try and determine what the how many decimal points to add after for scientific notation. So you saw before it was e to the -4 or -6. So because it was that, I add 2 more in there, and that gets us to where we need to be. I would encourage you to save this equation somewhere. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to open a notepad here. So you can see here, we've got the, you got the UBB rate. We're going to add all of them, all the equations in here, because we're going to need to come back to them in future videos to actually build out the models. You can also just save it here in this sheet. I don't like doing that just because that means I'm having to switch back and forth in the sheet, whereas I can just move the notepad to another window, and it's much easier that way. And then we're going to move on to K rate. We start with avoid Ks. And then we go back and we highlight K rate. And then insert, scatter plot. That looks correct. The higher your avoid Ks, the lower your strikeout rate gets. So we're gonna add the trend line again. So again, we add in the display equation and display r squared. And you can see this is a much smaller the r squared is much smaller on this one. Let's take a look. Let's start with the exponential, and that is closer. You can see it does start to slowly kind of match that trend where the higher you get, there are significant diminishing returns. That is a 3 to the negative, that is a -5 power. So we are going to highlight this again, go over to the label options, change the category to number, and decimal places, we are going to go to 7. Now that we're done with that, we're going to delete everything in this field, or in this sheet, and we're going to come back over here. We're going to grab home run rate. That goes in B, and power goes in A. And here you can see there is a clearly non-linear relationship here. Again, we're going to add a trend line really fast. Click on the trend line, add our equation and r squared. So the r squared on this is actually closer than I thought it would be. At 94.26% is related to this equation, 0.9426 on the r squared. But as you can tell, it's clearly not matching up at the bottom end and at the top end. So we need to try and figure out what can make it more accurate. And the exponential actually wants to vastly overestimate power at the top end, which is a problem because that is going to actually punish guys like Dave Kingman, who I believe is the 111 point here. So it's going to be pretty accurate on these guys down here and in the middle, but especially as we get to the top end, that's going to be an issue. Let's check polynomial then. Polynomial is very, very close here. You can see 0.9766. Again, we're going to want to come up here, change the category to number, and we're going to go back to 8 decimal places here. All right. Next up, we need to model BABIP. Now, BABIP is a bit different because for BABIP, I am always going to model that linearly. The reason for that is there's so much noise in BABIP that trying to tease out anything in there has a tendency to overfit. Breakpoints or anything like that, it has a tendency to overfit, and you can see this is probably going to be a fairly low r squared. You can already tell. I'm going to guess somewhere in the 0.8s. So yep, 0.8187. And I'm not going to try and fit this anymore. You can already tell there's a ton of noise in BABIP. BABIP is so dependent on things like luck and also just the quality of fielding you face. It's very, very hard to completely eliminate luck from BABIP. So a 0.81 is actually pretty solid for a BABIP correlation. I'm also going to leave this where it is. I don't think there's a need to get more exact on the BABIP equation here. You know, you're already going to be, one digit further than we normally calculate. So now that we have BABIP done, we need to take a look at extra base hits. And extra base hits, I tend to also do linearly. And the same with triple rate. I am going to take a look at if there are any breakpoints on there, but I'm also going to take a look and see if there's any reason to go to like polynomial or anything like that. But I tend to do that linearly just because we tend to get into the same issue with BABIP where there's just a ton of noise. And you can see here there's so much noise in this. There's no way there's a reliable breakpoint in there. I'm surprised we don't have anyone with a super high gap power rate though. That's the one thing that surprises me here. It's gonna be about a 0.7 or something like that. Come on. Show off for the camera. It's a good yawn there. Here we have the r squared. I'm gonna take a look at the different equation types. We'll take a look at polynomial first. 7.5 or 0.75, and this is what, 0.74, almost 0.75. Again, there is just so much noise here. I am just going to go with linear. And now we're going to do the same thing for triples. So we delete all this. And triples, that is speed. And triple rate. And who's playing Hugh Nickel? This is not going to be very accurate. And part of the reason is we have a super fast guy up here. And this R squared, it's much lower than the other ones we've seen so far, 0.20, but that's not super concerning. When you're doing statistical analysis, the level of R squared that you would consider significant, it changes a little bit depending on context, but usually anything greater than 0.1 is considered to be mildly correlated or weakly correlated. But in this case, we know that this guy is an extreme outlier, both in his rating and his triple rate. So I am going to... Where is Mr. Nickel? Or whoever has 123. There he is. I'm going to delete these cells. And shift cells up. Try this again. Data. It looks more scattered here, but it's mostly just due to the fact that you're not showing as wide of an area to try and capture the outlier. We take a look here, and it's actually less well correlated. So what that means is So that means we are going to use this rate right here, because that is the highest correlation, and that's probably way too high on the triple rate. It's probably closer to about the 0.3 range. And again, there's a ton of luck in triples. It's it is related to speed, but it's also related to the quality of the fielders out there. If you have really rangy fielders out in the outfield, they're not going to give up as many triples as a worse defense. And since that is something that is out of the batter's hand, this lower correlation, I'm not too worried about it. It's a weak correlation. And the difference between doubles and triples in terms of run value, it's pretty small, because either way, you're not looking at that many triples. So now we're going to model stolen base attempted rate. That's SBA rate here. We're going to copy this over into sheet 4. And we're also going to actually model that on speed. I'm going to move this down. I'm going to take a look at how many I have if I take out everyone below 50. I like the way that trend line looks on the left there. Before I do anything, though, I'm going to change this trend line. I am torn on this one because the R squared is a significant difference here, right? But you shouldn't be letting someone below 50 or even like with low speed, they shouldn't be stealing all that much. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to do a max equation, and we're going to go with a polynomial regression here. Means we need to change to number, and this is going to be 7. Because I really do want to get as close to the correct number of stolen base attempts for these guys at the top as I can. And I think the polynomial regression is going to match that better. I don't care as much how accurate it is down here, even in the 80s, because I'm probably not going to let them steal anyway. So we're going to copy stolen base rate. I'm going to put that here. And we're going to go back over here, and we're going to get stealing. And we're going to remove all the zeros. That gives us 38 still. That's plenty to model. You usually want at least 30 when you can. And yep, we got pretty inconsistent numbers down here at the back end where most people aren't allowing their base runners to steal. And pretty linear here in the middle area where people might be more likely to allow base runners to steal. I'm going to remove these 4 because they really should not be stealing, and they are vastly throwing off the rest of the model. So we're going to remove them as outliers. I really do think this is pretty linear. Yeah, this is a very linear relationship here. And again, I do not want to underestimate in the middle here because these guys are stealing. And we're just going to go with linear. I think again, you're considering with this, we look at all these, the R-squareds are pretty close. So then you go, well, what are the external factors that can factor into whether a guy is successful at stealing a base? It's the hold runner of the pitcher, it's the catcher's ability to throw them out, and once you start getting into the 2 things that are working against it, you really are talking about a lot of noise that can affect how likely a batter is to steal a base. I really do think this is a fairly accurate model for the data set we have. We need to do one more. We need to do UBR. We're going to add in a new column really quickly because I forgot to do UBR rate. So you should do UBR rate earlier in this if I didn't in the earlier videos. Rate equals UBR divided by A. And I'm not even going to check anything other than linear because there are so many different things that go into this. UBR can very much go negative, but there is so much noise in UBR that it's not worth checking anything other than negative. I'll take a 0.51 R-squared for UBR. That's fairly close to what you can expect, and we are going to need to jump the decimal places up to 7 again. So that is batting modeled. Trained anyway. So now we're going to come over to pitches. Okay, and again, I'm going to hide everything except everything between UBB and batters faced, because we're going to filter on batters faced. I don't need any of these numbers. I'm checking this time to make sure I don't. We're going to filter batters faced. Again, we're going to put greater than or equal to 1,000. That gets us 47. So that's pretty close to what we did on batters. I think we had 46 batters, 47 pitchers. Again, we're going to start with unintentional walks and control. And it's important that you get the card rating here on the left side, so that is the on the x-axis, that is the independent variable, because that's what you're actually modeling, not the other way around. And you can see this has the same negative correlation that avoid Ks does with strikeouts. A lot of the pitching numbers, the higher the rating gets, the lower things go, except for stuff, because you're decreasing negative outcomes. So this is a pretty good number right here. But you can see, especially at the edges on both the top end and the bottom end, that we are not quite lined up, and we only have a 0.89 correlation. So let's see if we can match that a little bit better here with the polynomial regression. Significantly better here with the polynomial regression. So we're going to go with that. Again, we're going to need to jump to a 7 decimal places here. Let's take a look at stuff. And A rate. This is going to be the only positive correlation we see for pitchers. Everything else should get lowered the higher the rating. And yep, you can see here there's a significant drop off there at the top end. I don't think I'm going to have enough above this breakpoint here at 80. Is kind of where I see the breakpoint start in, 80 or 90. I don't think I'm gonna have enough above there to make a reliable model, so we're gonna have to do a polynomial regression. You can see the linear 93 0.93 r squared. It is very, very reliable, except for those edge cases. They're at the top specifically, pretty reliable here toward the bottom end as well. Those edge cases there at the top, though, they are getting quite a bit more help than they should. So let's see if we can bring that in line a little bit here. Yep, it significantly curbs it. Looks like it's actually thinking that breakpoint really hits above 100, which is probably correct. So we need another 7 decimal places here to accurately show everything. We'll see if we need to do the same thing with home run rate or if that can be linear. We know BABIP is going to be linear. So over here, hit your home run. This appears to be pretty linear here. There doesn't appear to be any significant changes. 0.78. My home run rate is exponential, or is a polynomial on the batter's side. So let's take a look at a polynomial regression here for the pitchers as well. It's not that much more reliable, so we're going to stick with the linear. There is more noise than you would expect in home run rate for pitchers. I don't know why. You know, for batters, there's a lot less noise in home run rate than there is for pitchers. I'm just not sure why that is. That's not just something that I've noticed in this model, but in models in the past. Like if you look at the noise in like pitching, there's just a little bit more noise in pitching. It's even something that is a true outcome like home runs. Like you'd expect it in BABIP here, where the BABIP is just going to be very, you know, fielding dependent, but not in home runs or strikeouts or anything like that. That should be pretty noiseless. But it appears to me that honestly, BABIP is much more correlated than home run rate in iron this time around, and it is higher. It is a stronger correlation. It's very slightly. You can see it's all clustered here. It's actually probably decently accurate. You know, pitchers tend to have BABIPs between 3.5 and or 0.35 and 0.25. I'm going to run this one extra decimal place. I'm going to run it to 4 decimal places, just because I want to start this. Okay, it doesn't actually add anything. Gotcha. I was hoping this would add another decimal point. You know, it'd be like 0.3961 or something like that, but it's not. And again, since we're going to model extra bases and triples based on league average numbers, we don't have to model that for pitchers. We don't really have anything to model that. So next, we have fielding, and fielding has a lot. So first thing we're going to do, we are going to remove anyone with under 1,000 innings played. Next, we're gonna start with catcher. We're only going to show catchers for now. All right. So what we need to do is, before we do any of that, we need to calculate a few things. So I added a couple of fields over here in weights. The league runners thrown out rate and the league stolen bases allowed. And I have a rate and per 1,000 IP. So we need to calculate the rate, and then we need to multiply it by we need to find the number per 1,000 innings played. So that is equals sum if the range is going to be so, and then this is what we will compare the average catcher to. And so the league average is about 30%. Format that as a percentage with a couple decimal points. So about 30% RTO. Colette's making it very hard for me to concentrate on my work right now. Thank you, Colette. So we're gonna scroll all the way up here. We're gonna filter by number filters greater than or equal to 1,000. And then we're gonna start with catchers. So, coming over. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So again, I said we want a larger sample size than um usually you want about 30, but you just can't get that on um you just can't quite get that. Oh, the other thing we need to do on weights, I forgot, is you need to sum these. That's how we're actually going to be able to calculate them. We're going to take catcher ability. Bring that over here to sheet. Bring that over here. And we're going to bring over both frame innings pit, frames per inning played. And we're going to bring over zone rating as well. And again, we're just going to do these linearly because we have a smaller sample. Insert via scatter plot and add the trend line. It is very out of place. We're actually going to delete this. Go. And that gives us a much stronger correlation. Let's add the R squared in. That takes us from 0.82 to 0.97. So again, we are dealing with smaller sample sizes here, so I'm not afraid to drop an outlier to get something that's more accurate. Now let's go. Let's control click to hold down and highlight the second row instead. I'm gonna do scatter plot again. Let's add our trend line. R squared and the equation. This correlation is not going to be as high because zone rating on catchers is pretty weird. That is 85 again. Should not have the highest zone rating. That is good. So apparently whoever had 85 catcher ability and is getting played somehow had a massive outlier on his performance. We'll go back to fields. And we're going to go to first baseman. We only have, it looks like, 8 first basemen. It'd help if I put the variables in the correct order. 0.46, yeah. I mean, I could drop this one down here, but I don't think we're that inaccurate. It's first base defense. I want to get them all in there. I have a smaller sample size, and first base defense is not the end of the world. I think this is accurate enough. Delete this. Now we get into the ones that are going to be a little bit more important, especially second and shortstop. We'll get to second base. What's our sample size here? 14. Pretty good. So we take infield range and zone rating per inning played. And that's a nice trend line right there. That's very nice, very steep, very close, very tight. 0.92. So not only is it accurate, it shows kind of what we expect, that range is very, very important, and you really do not want a short range second baseman. Really kind of need about 70, 75, somewhere in there. Let's go to third base really fast. And we have a very small sample size here. We'd have more than this, but we don't, so... you know what? Let's drop the innings played down to 900 really fast. As guess anyone. That also doesn't get us anyone. Okay. We're going to stay where we are. We're going to delete 69 and the 70 and see what that gives us, because that was a pretty... It's a pretty bad correlation here. 0.302. We delete these two that are 1 point off, and they're almost complete opposite. They're the smallest number followed by the largest number. So we delete those, and that is much closer. I don't like modeling third base defense with only 5, but it is the limitation I have to work with here. So you have to keep in mind, whenever you're modeling like this, fielding is the least reliable of your models in general, but especially when you're modeling with smaller samples. Actually move to shortstop, and shortstop we have plenty more. And part of the problem is everyone wants to run Dave Kinkman at third base. There we go. I like the look of this trend line. I don't see any huge outliers. Maybe this guy here. Nope, that's pretty close right there. Might get a little higher if we take out this 90. Take a look. Not significantly, so we're going to leave it in. Delete these, and now we go for left field. Left field again, we need both zone rating and arms. We'd put that here. Put that there, and let's grab arm here. It's a pretty nice model right there. Pretty nice, even visible trend. Take a look at the relationship here. Yep, pretty strong. Works for me. I'm just gonna delete these two. And then do this as the fastest way to move forward. And this is where we start to see some really weird trends. We're gonna have to delete quite a few samples here. There's almost no correlation. We're just gonna have to stick with this. Our other option, and I'm probably gonna do this, is we model all of the outfield arm together, or at least the corner outfielders together, because this is not a very strong correlation here. So I'm going to come back on outfield arm. It's pretty consistent that corner outfield, especially left field, the arm is just super weird. So again, we go in here, insert. Pretty nice chart right there. Very obvious trend line. Add that trend line in. Take a look at the R squared. Yep, that looks good. I am going to check this correlation here really fast, because center field does tend to be a little bit better correlated. You can see there's a lot better of a trend here, even if it's not great. It's at least a recognizable positive trend. No. Okay. So we're gonna go with this. Even though there's no positive arms here, according to this, that is probably more to do with the way the game is being played in Iron than a problem with the correlation, because everyone who played a ton had a negative arm, no matter how good their arm was. I'm going to delete these, then I'm going to do right field arm, or just right field zone rating at first. It's a nice even trend line there. No huge outliers. Alright, so now we delete this, delete these, and we come back over here, and we're gonna add in left field. And model corner outfield arms. Alright, so what do we gotta get rid of? We gotta get rid of, I think everything in the middle is concerning. That is, let's sort, let's see, so we need to get rid of 72. And 70. All right, yep, there we go. That is going to be our equation. For the corner outfield. A little bit more work, but I really hate not having a reliable arm out there for left field. And it's possible that right field would have run into the same issue where you just couldn't correlate it together. And so that is everything we need to model in this, or we need to train in this set here. I'm going to delete all the extra stuff now that I'm done with it. Alright, so I went ahead and figured out the batters faced for starters and relievers off record, because it was just taking me a while. So it's sum if pitchers as starting pitcher, yes, and then their batter faced, and then sum if pitcher starting pitcher, yes, and pitcher games. For starting pitchers, for relievers, it's the same except RP instead of SP. And the formula to determine, we added them over here. It is if greater than 66% of games started, or 66% of games, 66% of games or greater. 66% or greater of games are starts or relief appearances. That's how they qualify. So you can see here, this card actually doesn't qualify for either because he's being used on both sides, and that's probably a good thing because both these guys would pretty significantly raise the reliever batters faced per game number, and that's already decently high. That's way higher than I would think it would be normally. But that is everything we are going to calculate today. Next time we will start actually building out the models. Again, today we just trained the regression formulas. We got those formulas, so next time we can actually build out the models, which includes, you know, calculating the projected walk rates, home run rates, that kind of thing. But also, you know, what that translates to in terms of WOBA, in terms of FIP, in terms of all those things that we actually need to use to build out WAR. So please go ahead and make sure you subscribe if you want to see the remaining videos in the series. I think there's 4 or 5 left, but we've got 3 sets of models to build. The batting, the pitching, and the fielding. And then we've got one going over kind of all the stats that I look at when I'm both building a model and when I'm just looking at stats on a in and out of the park. Hopefully done sometime late January, early February, we get done with that series. But other than that, thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy this video, again, like and subscribe. Also, come on by the Twitch stream. You can see a little bit more of this little girl right here. She loves to hang out on my lap during streams. Twitch.tv/IROCTHS. But other than that, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.